All right. Hey, welcome back. It's Second Act with DeAngelo, and I'm DeAngelo. And this is our show that's going to be very special show tonight because we're going to be talking a lot about rebuilding, redefining our lives, and refusing to repeat the same mistakes we made in our first act. I have a special guest who's going to help us do that tonight. His name is Donald Morton. He's the founder and chief visionary officer of ReManned. Donald rebuilds men from the inside out: identity, capacity under pressure, and execution across life, leadership, and legacy. Donald, welcome to the show.
Hey man, thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here. Excited about tonight's conversation.
Yes, I'm excited too. It's been a good month in the making, and I'm
Yes.
happy. I'm excited we're going to do this. I almost feel like we should have been doing this next month because it's Father's Day. I could consider all of June Father's Day, right?
Yes.
So this would have been very timely. But guess what? This is content that we're gonna repurpose for June. How about that? Fair?
Makes sense. Absolutely.
All right, wonderful. So let me frame this up before we get started. I read your story about father, absentee military service as a surgical tech, 25 years in ministry, bankruptcy, cancer survivor, divorced and remarried, and then now the founder of ReManned. And this is going to be the arc really for today's show, if you don't mind. Here's my first question I'd like to start with. Which single chapter in that story forced you to stop surviving and start rebuilding?
So I would argue that, and I like the way that you kind of use this is going to be the arc for today's conversation, right? I don't know, D'Angelo, man, that there's a single moment that causes me to shift and to transform. I will say, if I had to choose one, it is my divorce to my second wife. And it's because I was living the dream, bro. I was preaching and teaching and doing webinars or not webinars, seminars across the country and around the world. I was a well sought after speaker. But behind the scenes, D'Angelo, I was doing cheating on my ex-wife, and it all became very public. You know, cheating on her was probably the single most regretful time of my life, not because I got caught, but because she was really a good woman to me. And I was too immature to really handle what it meant to be a man in that kind of scenario, in that kind of marriage. In fact, we didn't even divorce because I cheated. We divorced because I was too immature to sit in the pain that I caused her without trying to rush her through her own process. Right. And so it became too much for her to handle. It was already too much for me to handle while I was the perpetrator of the issue. So if there is a single issue that caused me to transform, it's the awakening and the awareness that comes about when you hurt someone and the journey that it takes to heal with the person, absent from the person that you actually hold. And so I think it was 2016, 2017, somewhere around there that it caused me to really say, hey, you got to get your life together. So it got really, really bad for me around that time.
So was that the pain that you kind of referenced that became the moment to help you shift? Or is that just part of the journey of?
It was part of it, D'Angelo, but it was a significant part of it, right? Because let me paint the picture, right? So I'm on my way to Los Angeles, California to teach. And you know how you land on the plane, they tell you can turn your phone back on. I turn my phone back on, man, and my phone is going off like crazy. Text after text after text. And my mother always taught me to pay attention to the seniors in my church, right? So whenever a senior called me, I would respond to that. So I called her. I said, hey, mom, what's going on? And she said, Pastor, you're in the news. And this is the arrogance of Donald Morton, right? So the arrogance of Donald Morton at that time, D'Angelo, was, I said, praise God. because I was used to being in the news, right?
Yeah.
I had done die-ins before. I was politically active, social justice advocate. I fought for the death penalty to be revoked in Delaware. Like all of the things that a man in the social justice realm could do, I had done. And so I'd been in magazines before, newspapers before, done television before. It wasn't new, right? And so I said, "Praise God." And she said, "No, sir. No, sir, not this time." So what's going on? She said, "You are in the media because of you cheating on your wife. And not only are you in the media, but the women that you cheated with are also in the media." Watch this, DeAngelo. Not only are you in the media and the women that you cheated with in the media, but their children are in the media,
Oh, wow.
right? And so what I realized was the ripple effect that happens with my own behavior. It's one thing to be slapped on the wrist and be gut punched by my own behavior. I can take that. I should be able to take that. But the women and their children, it became the point where I recognized that my behavior was not mine only, right? That there were other people involved, other people affected. And I decided to live a life that would be very, very different than impacting the most vulnerable of people, which were the children at that moment, right? They had nothing to do with it. And yet my behavior caused a stain on their families and on their families' lives.
You said something about ego. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? How did that get in the way of you being able to see the environment you're creating for yourself relationship wise?
Yeah, because it's easy, man. When you're successful and everybody's calling your name and everybody's inviting you to teach and you're making gobs of money, yeah, it's easy, right? It's easy to think that that's what matters. And there are so many men that we get a chance to serve inside of the ReManned world who are doing incredibly well, right? They're doing incredibly well in their careers. They're leaking, right? They're leaking in their families, marriages, or unhappy children they haven't seen. So, and their children don't respect them and they're losing themselves in the process. So the ego for me was I could say a couple of things. I knew how to
Mm.
perform. I knew how to stand up there on Sunday morning and raise offerings. I knew how to teach a lesson that would get the attention of the people that I was serving. I knew how to do all of that, but behind the scenes, my life was crumbling. And my ego was the last thing that I could hold on to have some semblance of success. I was still teaching across the country and all of that, even though I was cheating on my ex-wife. And so that ego was the last thing to go. I had to kill it, right? And you have to
Mm.
kill it by recognizing just how much damage you are doing to people in the process.
I'm sure as we go through more questions, we're going to get to the root, cause
Yes.
of this, because,
Yes.
I'm one to believe that as we get older, there are things that we act out in our older
Yes.
in our older age. Sometimes, when money comes to play and success, it gets covered. Those ailments get covered,
Yes.
that we haven't fixed, and they come out in different ways in our adulthood, right?
Yes.
And I think you kind of hit on some of that later on in some of the readings that you have. So
Yes.
so let me ask you this other question before we get more deeper into the framework of the ReManned. You also served in the Army.
Yes.
And you spent decades in ministry before launching ReManned, right?
Yes.
So I'm taking some of that might be foundational in some of the ReManned
Yes.
work you're doing. How did those chapters shape the discipline and the language you use now when you're coaching, people like myself?
So clearly the military did that for me, right? I ended up in the Army, but I tried to get into the United States Marine Corps and went all the way to Paris Island, South Carolina, did 12 weeks of basic training, only for them to kick me out in the final week. And they kicked me out in the final week because I couldn't swim. I just couldn't pass swim qual, man. Right. And so the Marine Corps is funny because they don't really teach you to swim. put you on the top of this thing and push you off, and you either swim or you die, right?
Re-
Yeah, man. So later on, they try to teach you, but the trauma for a guy like me, who they told at the onset of coming into the United States Marine Corps, hey, there's no swim qualification. You're going to be fine, because my mother and I told him on day one, hey, he don't do good in the water. So you would think, why the heck would you go into the Marine Corps marine water, right? And so it was the uniform. Like, I love the uniform. I love the fact that they were disciplined. There's nothing like the United States Marine Corps, right? So they kicked me out, and the first day, well, actually the first day of me getting to Paris Island, they have these things called the golden footprints. So they tell you to put your feet on the golden footprints, and you get a good night's sleep. You get there the middle of the night. You don't really know what's going on. You're disoriented. And remember, my recruiter told me that there was no swim qual. So when we wake up, the bugle sounds, and I'm staying locked at my bunk, and they said 0800 swim qual. So I raised my hand. That is the worst thing in the world to do, right? So I raised my hand, and they called me a boatload of names that I will not repeat here, right? But they called me a boatload of names, and they said, "What, maggot?" I said, "Yeah." My recruiter said, and they bust out laughing. Everybody bust out laughing. They said, "You listen to your recruiter, you dumb," right? And so I went through all of the training, couldn't pass the swim qual. He said, "Hey, we think you're a good recruit. We will pass you. We will let you bypass swim qual, but you got to go all the way back and train us." So send me home. I was home for a month, went into the United States Army, was soldier of the cycle, was a 91 Delta at that time. The thing has changed now, but it was a 91 Delta there, which was a surgical tech. And I was in an Army mobile hospital unit. So the military helped to shape a tremendous discipline. And I am grateful. I still make my bed the way the military taught me. I still fold my socks the way the military taught me, because they said, if you don't make your bunk and you don't get your clothes ready and you're not able to shower and shave, then you die in the field. This is not us just trying to have good housekeeping. You die in the field if you can't develop certain habits. So I come to life now understanding that my habits dictate whether or not I live or die. That's my frame. So, and then taking that into ministry, which those that trained me in ministry were high on excellence and order and discipline and structure. So yeah, both of those times in my life helped to create and shape the man that I am today, but it did not keep me from still blowing my world up. Right.
Got
In
you. And
fact,
so,
yes, sir. Go ahead.
yeah, the things you mentioned, on your website, like all those different things that you just kind of took us through the remarriage part, but like the cancer survival, the bankruptcy, 25 years of ministry and the military. When you talk about bankruptcy, cancer survival, are these all different chapters separate in your life that became the culmination of ReManned in some way in terms of why it was inspired?
Yeah, all of it matters, right? And so all of it is at different seasons, times, chapter, divorces at certain times and chapters, cancer at my mid 40s, which is pretty young for prostate cancer, bankruptcy after having mismanaged money. So here's the thing, man. None of this was anybody else's fault. My life is the sum total of decisions that I made, right? Which for ReManned is one of the first steps and stages that we take a man through, how to own his life, his choices, and his decisions, and not to blame them on anyone else or to make excuses. So each of those represented certain stages of my life, but they all culminate into this taking ownership of my life and recognizing, DeAngelo, that I wasn't the only one, right? So this was a normal thing. As I was saying, brothers cheat, brothers divorce, brothers deal with cancer and sickness and disease. right? Financial issues. What I began to understand, bro, is that there's a way to be successful in all of it at the same time,
Yep.
right? That usually what happens is men tout success in one area and we're one dimensional men, right? But other areas are falling apart. And so what I am after is that small space that is at the intersection of life, leadership, and legacy, where every man can live if he learns to master it all at the same time. And brothers ask me all the time, is it really possible? Absolutely, it's possible. It just takes a tremendous amount of focus and discipline and what we call as ReManned integration, because the
Wow.
truth is balance is a lie, right? Any brother that tries to balance his life, it's a lie. It doesn't work.
I'm gonna be honest with you. When I read that portion of you talking about balance is a lie, at first I was like, hold up. It goes against like a lot of my thinking
Yes.
and what I've been told. You
Yes.
got to have balance. You got to have.
Yes.
But after I kept reading a little further, and I'm like, okay, all right. I think I see where he's going, because it's not realistic that we can have a consistency of balance throughout our life.
That's right.
I can wake up today with the greatest intentions, everything planned out the night before, and
That's right.
something just interrupts that's out of my control and
That's
throws away balance right out the window, right? I had to step back and go, okay, I'm gonna listen, see what he's talking about. So I can't wait till we get into that.
Yes.
So this is interesting what you just said, and I just left my thought because it was someone I want to ask you about last thing, but we'll come back to it.
Okay.
So we're gonna start diving into the framework of the character arc for the framework for your ReManned. And you have these abbreviations, SQ, AQ, MQ.
Yes.
Can you kind of tell my audience, in a nutshell, what this means?
Yeah, man. So every man's on a journey, DeAngelo. Every man. It doesn't matter who he is or where he is. Every man's on a journey. And he's on what you have accurately described. He's on an arc. He's on a character arc. In movies, character arc is, as you probably already know, when a character starts out one way and by the end of the movie ends up a different way. The transformation that happens for that person internally is what's called a character arc. So for us, we've created a use of the term to recognize every man is on a character arc, and either he allows the character arc unintentionally to create the man that he's going to be, or he decides to intentionally take his own life in his hands and create a character arc for himself. So this is what it essentially means. SQ is a man's spiritual quotient. It is his sense of belief in who he is and why he is. Every man has to be able to answer two fundamental questions if he's going to be successful. He's got to answer why. He's got to answer who am I, question of identity. And he's got to answer why am I, question of purpose. And so a lot of the brothers that you and I see every single day are brothers who have no sense of direction. And they don't have any sense of direction because no one announced to them who they are, and no one announced to them why they exist. Everybody on the planet has a purpose. But unless that's unveiled for you, you don't have a discipline to be able to accomplish that. So that's what SQ is. SQ is a fundamental belief in identity and purpose that can't be shaken. AQ is a man's adversity quotient. It's his ability to develop capacity to handle extreme pressure. Because if DeAngelo has clarity around who he is and why he exists, the moment pressure happens, and you can have direction, but you'll fold under pressure. And that is where most men are experiencing challenge. The guys that are in our correctional facilities, guys who end up cheating on their wives, guys who are domestic violence abusers. These are guys that are not bad guys. These are guys who don't know how to handle pressure. So when pressure comes, it doesn't come to necessarily shape you. It comes to expose you. It comes to help you to see where the gaps and leaks are in your life so that you can do something around fixing them. What are those gaps and leaks in AQ? Responsibility, my ability to respond to pressure moments, right? Ethicality is, can I live by a code even when it's uncomfortable? So am I able to keep my word when it's not comfortable for me to keep my word, right? Mastery is a sense of discipline. Adaptability is my ability to pivot when life happens. And then nobility is not survival mode. It's me doing more than what is required when pressure hits. So if I can master those 5 areas, then I can strengthen my AQ. Anytime pressure hits, one of those 5 or all of those 5 are under pressure. And when you can identify those and fix those, then you're well on your way to experiencing success. So SQ is my spiritual quotient. AQ is my adversity quotient. MQ is my mastery quotient. It is my skill set. If I can lock in on identity and purpose,
Yeah.
and I can remain that same man under extreme pressure, then I will have enough in me to navigate the skill that is necessary to master life leadership and legacy. Life leadership and legacy is my personal life, my family life, my business life. So when I don't have enough in me, then I'll never develop the skill necessary to be a good husband because I'm going to fold under pressure. I'll never develop the skill necessary for me to get my finances together because I think I know it. So the formula is, if I can lock in on identity and purpose and I can remain, if I can expand my capacity under pressure, then I'll be able to execute skillfully across life leadership and legacy. So if ever dropped the ball and done something that you're not proud of, here's what happened. Either you weren't clear about identity and purpose, or even if you were clear, when pressure hit, you gave up that identity and purpose. Because if you didn't, or if something didn't break in that part, you would have been able to be successful in whatever endeavor you were involved in. So that's the way that the formula works.
So you said something about maybe 20 minutes ago, the fact that someone asked you, how can you focus on all these things, as a man, right?
Yes.
I think it can be a distraction to deal with some of these things. Like I saw the Michael Jackson movie yesterday, but it speaks to kind of what you're talking about. You can do great things.
Yes.
Michael Jackson did great things.
Yes.
If you watch the movie, you haven't, you would see scenes in him, no spoilers, but we all know he loved kids, right?
Yes.
Being in the hospital after a burn and him going around spending his time with all the kids. I'm sure they had toys and having gratitude because he saw them in worse circumstances.
Yes.
He can do all this great stuff, but still have the potential to do very disastrous things to his life.
Yes.
At the same time.
Yes.
So when you say that, how difficult is it for a man who's seen success doing things the way they've been doing?
Yes.
And now you're asking them to go look at them in this way, look at themselves.
Yes.
Peel back the onion the way you're doing it in this way, when they've been validated by the success they're having. Like the example, how you started this, right?
Yes.
How do you get someone in with your teachings to be able to be honest with the...
I think you're hitting on all the points, right? So ReManned doesn't work until we're honest. It doesn't work until, at the very core of the work that we do, on day one, a man is challenged to be truthful because we usually lie, right? And so ReManned has cultivated a space where we celebrate truth and we abhor lying, right? So a guy can tell me, one guy told me one time, he was inside the community, he said, hey, I'm really only with my girlfriend because it's sexy, right? So I said, cool. And he said, I said, I don't have no problems with that. This is what I request though. Go tell her. Go tell her.
Wow.
And the brothers was like, Doc, no, go tell her. So he did. He went and told her. Guess what she did? She woke up.
There you go.
I heard from him a couple of years later, DeAngelo. I said, what's up, man? He said, man, I'm doing great. He said, I'm married. I said, oh, congratulations, bro. I said, who are you married to? He said, remember the girl that I told the truth? I said, get out of here. He said, yeah. He said, we're married. I said, what made her marry you? He said, because the one thing that she told me is, what I know and trust is that no matter what, he's going to tell me. I can handle that man because I know I can anticipate, I can predict that I never got to guess where he's coming from. The truth is, the way that men define success for themselves and the way we define success inside ReManned are two different definitions. It is not successful because he makes a lot of money, and it's not successful because he sleeps with a lot of women. That's not successful. Because at home, what I know about him is the nights of loneliness, the nights of questioning whether or not he's enough, the nights of trying to figure out whether the girl that he's sleeping with that's laying next to him wants him or for his money. What he's presenting to the world is, I'm successful, he's suited and booted, he got money, but he ain't happy, bro. And brothers
Yeah.
torture, right? And so one of the first things we do is we help him to redefine what success is. For us, success is mastering all of it. You're not successful if you got one area and the rest of your areas are on fire. That's not success. Success for us is you having a strong business, you thriving in your marriage and family, and not losing yourself in the process. Until you can say that, you have not experienced success. You've experienced a semblance of success, but it's really fraction.
Yeah, I say it's even deeper. They're cheating on themselves,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you just gave me the example because that honesty helped him have a deeper intellectual relationship with his wife,
Absolutely.
right? So you cheating on her, there's an act, a physical act that she's hurt by, but really deep down, you're cheating on yourself, right?
Absolutely, bro.
And how
100%.
many men are in marriages cheating on themselves? Like you said, they're for the wrong reasons. Oh, she's financially stable. I am, and I need someone who's just financially stable.
Yes.
But then they're missing all the emotional connection.
Yes. Yes.
Or like you said, sex. We're staying with each other for the kids. I think that is one of the most toughest things to have to do as a man, and especially if you bring religion into it, right?
Yes. Yes.
So it's almost like my thought is I have to suffer. I have to suffer. I have to choose to suffer in this relationship for the sake of the kids, right?
Yeah.
What's your thought about that? Because you're saying this is one of the areas for ReManned. Like, you could, some of your customers, I'm sure they may not have all of these issues they're dealing with. Some might have great financial setups, but the issue that you really need help them is the divorce, the marriage, that type of aspect. So what would you say to a man who's trying to ReManned himself, but in a relationship for the sake of others, but not for himself?
Yeah. So it's oxymoronic, right? Because when someone says they're successful, but only in relationship for the sake of something external, then that is a man who is fractured in identity. Because when I am clear about who I am, I'm not staying in any relationship that is inconsistent and misaligned with who I am as a man and the call that God has given me. I'm not doing that for anybody, right? So usually what men, and I've suffered from this, right? One of my sisters, I have two sisters, and one of my sisters said to me, you don't always have to be the martyr. You don't always have to be the martyr. And religion teaches husbands to lay down their lives and, to love his wife as Christ loved the church, gave himself, sacrificed himself. And so as long as you're sacrificing for your wife and kids, you're good. No, sir. No, sir. Right? The truth is that a better scripture is love your neighbor as you love yourself. That I can only do for my neighbor to the degree and extent that I am healthy and well internally. Right? And so what most men come into ReManned thinking is if I can somehow get her to love me, if I can somehow, the more I do, if I work real hard, if I do A, B, and C, then she'll respect me and she'll love me and the kids will look up to me. And so that's not sustainable. So what we work with men on is whatever decision you're going to make, I'm okay with. Make it from a healthy identity and from a clear purpose. If you can do that, I can live with whatever decision that you make. But if what you're doing is to gain respect, if what you're doing is to gain affirmation, for me, messing with a bunch of women affirmed me. right? Like I loved women blowing my head up. I enjoyed it. I have enough charisma, I have a certain degree of intellect, I had a degree of money. All those things worked in my favor. The panties come tumbling down. That's what happens, right? But I was broken, dude. I wasn't clear about who I was. So I was still living a miserable life. I seeing women and looking happy. So there is no success without clear identity. And after a while, when you try, even if you experience a modicum of success, the truth is after a while, it's not sustainable. It's a house of cards. It comes tumbling
Yes.
down. Yeah.
Sustainable because I've been in corporate HR for over 30 something years
Okay.
and I had blinders. I'm trying to get to this position. And once I got to that position through education and all of that and all the ups and downs and promotions and the fights to get to that spot, once I got there,
Yes.
it was like, okay, and
Yes.
it's not all what I've seen, but
Yes.
I've made that my purpose in life,
Yes.
right? Which was damaging because now I had to find a new purpose.
Yes.
And I made my purpose to something that is not finite. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? So my next question for you is, because you kind of talked about this a couple minutes ago, is finding your purpose for a man in their second act that has made their purpose what they do, not who they are.
Yeah.
What is the process of, I guess, recalibrating a person's mind who's
Yeah.
been doing that all their life? I mean, that's a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
To change
Yeah.
that thinking,
Yeah.
right?
It's a lot of work. It's hard work. The other day, the brothers and I were talking. We usually meet on Wednesday night. At least a portion of ReManned meets on Wednesday night. And we were talking about how we're not playing the same game other men play, right? So men say, well, what's your business like? How much money you making? Yeah. So inside our world, that's an easy game. That's an easy game to play. We play the hard game of making money, keeping a wife happy, children solid, and not losing us. That's a hard game, bro. It's probably the single most difficult game that any man will play in his life. And we gamify it, right? So you can actually earn points and it's a whole thing inside ReManned, right? So
Wow.
you genuinely articulate well the fact that, you know, how it's a hard game to play. It's like the world is playing checkers and ReManned is playing chess. It's a different game. The rules are different. The work ethic required is different. My son, who is new inside of our world, he just came out of one of the significant stages of ReManned. And he said, hey, Dad, he's 37. I think my son is 37. He said, hey, Dad, my point game is solid. You should see how many points, right? Because for us, we know that if you do this work and if you gain these points, the outcomes are automatic, right? So those are the KPIs for us. The outcomes are automatic. For a man who has been functioning a certain way, has been making what he does who he is for years, we strip him of all of that the moment he walks in. Because there's something called epigenetics, right? Epigenetics is this passed down generational stuff that we were taught by environment or we were taught by DNA and deeply cellular level. We have taken on personalities, personas, work ethics, so on and so forth from men that came before us, right? We didn't choose it. It was brought to us before our choices. So because of that, what we tell men at the very beginning is that you don't even know who you are. You don't even know what you're called to do. And what we got to do is we got to uproot all of the stuff you think you know. Let's pull it all up, right? And let's go back to the source of the one that made you. Not religiously, right? So we're not a Christian organization. I am a Christian. We have Buddhists in our organization. We got Muslims that are in our organization, right?
So you're like unlearning some things in the process.
So they're unlearning a bunch of stuff that they've been taught. Our parents do a great job because their responsibility is to give us values and teach us direction. But when we become men, you got to unlearn that because that may
Hmm.
be inconsistent with who God created you to be.
Right.
So we help men to excavate all of that stuff. And usually it's rooted in trauma. When I was pastoring, man, I pastored in Delaware and I was going to build this building, but the ground was contaminated. And what they call DENREC, natural resource and environment people, said, you can't build here. You can't build until you remediate the ground. You got to deal with all the toxins in the ground. There are
Wow.
traumas and challenges and things that parents have taught, preachers have taught, teachers have taught that I've got to pull up, because if I don't pull that stuff up and we build the ground where his spirit, his heart, his soul is going to contaminate everything that he does. Right. And so
Yeah.
we have a whole process in being able to do that so that he can get to a place of clarity where he understands who he is and why he exists.
Yeah. It's kind of like you make me think about my house and my garage, how, you live in the house for 16, 17 years and you keep on, accumulating things, right?
Yes.
And they're first in your home and
Yes.
then some things end up in your garage and you're just not ready to get rid of them because
Yes.
there's some type of emotional attachment. Next thing
Absolutely.
you know, you got a cluttered garage of things, right? From,
Absolutely.
all sorts of things, right? And it's time to declutter and get rid of some of those things so you can see who you really are and then make space for some new stuff.
In fact, you have described the first 5 chapters of the ReManned book, right?
Okay.
It's a process of clarity is week 4, right? So in the book, clarity is chapter 4, right? And so clarity happens after cleansing takes place. You can't have clarity until you do what you just described as clear the clutter. Cleansing has
Mhm.
to happen. Forgiveness has to happen. Trauma work has to happen, right? Before you can cleanse, though, you got to deal with culture. And culture is the set of beliefs and attitudes that you adopted. They're not even yours, but you adopted.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And before
Hmm.
culture takes place, you have to have a connection. 3 types of connections: vertical, between you and whoever you call God. That ain't our twist. We don't try to tell a man who he should call God. But a deeply sacred connection that most men miss is a horizontal connection. It is as sacred as his connection with God is my connection with you. Because if I don't have another brother to help walk me through this journey, I'm going to fail. Right. And both of those create an internal connection or an internal trust. So when I can connect, it creates culture. When I create culture, it creates cleansing. When I create cleansing, it creates clarity. And then I can understand in week 4, chapter 4, who am I and why I exist.
So we're here to that question I wanted to ask you, the one
Okay.
that was very controversial to me when I saw it in your book.
Yes.
Balance.
Yes.
You reject the idea of balance. And I know so many people who will listen to this be like, that's where we all should be seeking balance. You hear that all the time. You need to have a balanced life, balanced, work-life balance. That's
Yes.
common word I use in HR, right? Tons of get rid of the balance concept and get with the teach integration mindset. So
Yes.
what does integration look like for a man or woman
Yeah.
juggling marriage, motherhood, fatherhood, and business? Because
Yeah.
I think that's not gender specific, right?
Yeah. For
Even though
sure.
you're really focused on helping men, I think that applies to any gender,
It
right?
does. And to your point, man, what the research says is that women do integration better than we do,
Mm,
because women have to wear a lot of different hats at the same time. Men are very good at compartmentalizing. There's a book out there, plug to it because it's a very, very good book. Men are like waffles, women are like spaghetti.
okay.
And what it talks about is, as waffles are, there are different segments, and compartmentalization takes place for men. We know how to leave work at work, home at home. And we could have a bad day at work, come home, sit down and chill. Like we know how to compartmentalize.
They come home and they want to tell you what so and so did.
Absolutely, right?
What? No, she didn't.
So what integration says is this: balance is, and we have to be careful with language, right? So you just use language that further suggests work-life balance, because that's what we've been taught by society, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I can juggle it all, if I can make sure that I can give some time over here, some time over here, some time over here, some time over here, that's exhausting. It's literally exhausting. So
Yep.
here's what the research says. The research says that those who, and I forget who actually did the study, but the study says, may have been Harvard, the study says that for those who attempt work-life balance, they're more stressed than anybody else.
Trying to achieve it and keep it.
Trying to achieve it, and because it doesn't work. Like, how can, so you got wifey who says, hey babe, I need your time. And then you got your kids who say, daddy, you haven't come to the game. And then your job is pulling on you. Balance says, let me give an equal amount of time to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So okay, baby, I'm coming, but let me finish this last email. And then you get to wifey and you're watching a movie, and then the kid gets sick. Inevitably something's going to happen to knock you out of balance. It doesn't work. Integration says, how do I show up as the same man fully and wholly in every domain? You're going to get the same man, right? I'm a father at the job, and I'm a business owner at home too. I'm a one man. Where we spend a lot of time is trying to fracture ourselves and give everybody a little piece of us. And it's so exhausting, which is the reason why men ultimately crumble. There is a way for us, and it happens through the formula, right? When I'm clear about who I am, I'm going to be that man in every area. You're not going to get a man different at home than I am. I'm Donald. You're DeAngelo. No matter where you go, when you understand who you are and why you exist, and you are fully functioning in that purpose and identity, then the expectation is to remove stress. I'm going to be that on tomorrow. I'm going to be that on the job. I'm going to be that at home. And I'm not going to try to be different people depending on the situation. It's called situational ethics. It's called, what do they call it, DeAngelo? Code switching, right? So I got to be these different people all the time. It's less stressful to be DeAngelo 100% of the time, no matter where you are, and making sure you are aligned with who you are and what you're called to do. And that when pressure happens trying to get you to be someone else, you refuse that pressure.
Got you. So how does a man stop performing masculinity and start embodying it? What does that look like to you?
It begins, it's going to sound like a broken record, right? But it begins with a sense of identity. So masculinity, first of all, you got to be clear about who you are, because we live in a society that says that masculinity is toxic. I hate the term toxic masculinity. I abhor it, because the truth of the matter is, what our society calls toxic masculinity is just masculinity, right? So a guy who says, a guy who has bravado, a guy who has ego, a guy who is a bit of aggressive. We see that on a football field, right? We see in sports a guy taking out his aggression.
Yep.
So that's masculinity. We live in a society that banned dodgeball. Right? So think about it, bro. When I was in school, dodgeball was fun. Like you get that ball and you look for somebody that's open and you try to tear his head off, right? Our
Yep.
society said that dodgeball is too violent of a sport and we need to ban it. There is a society that is over mothering us and under fathering us. Got it? So when a man is clear, this is who I am, and he's willing to express that across life, leadership, and legacy, it doesn't matter what anybody else says masculinity is. I am comfortable in my own skin. And for me, one of the greatest challenges that I endured, bro, is the fact that my dad died so young. When I was so young, and he was young. My dad died at, I think, like 39. And I was overmothered, right? So I
Mm,
spent, my mom had a call on her life to make sure women were at the center stage of everything that she did. So my view of life, my worldview was based on women are always right. I
mm,
had no sense of identity, right? I wasn't soft or anything like that. I just had no sense of what a man was. My dad wasn't around to teach me. So I filtered everything through whatever a woman wants, a woman gets, right?
right.
If you give her away, she'll be good. She'll love you. And until I reached a place where I had to dive deep, right? Cleanse, declutter, and find out who I actually was, and then remain that man, even when I say something my wife doesn't like, even when I've got to make a decision she doesn't care for. I'm not going to crumble under that pressure because she's not speaking to me. No, I'm man enough to hold my position, even in the face of extreme pressure of my wife not liking it, so that I can execute as a husband, right? But most men break character before they ever get a chance to execute. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Definitely. In layman's terms, for someone who's just hearing this, who hasn't been in your program yet, and they just want a little taste of what this looks like, getting back to reframing integration versus balance. You talk about moving into that mind frame. So how do you show them what it looks like to think more about capacity under pressure, like in one daily act? Like what can you give me like one clear example how that
Yeah.
would show up?
Yeah. So capacity under pressure simply means when the heat is on, Mike Tyson said, everybody got a plan. You get punched him in the mouth,
Right.
everybody got a plan, right?
Yep.
Your lifing is inevitable. So what we do, we actually have an app that helps to walk a man through. We have an AI version that helps to walk a man through personal development and even gives him the practice to be able to deal with adverse moments. So let's take responsibility. Responsibility is the first part of the arc, right? So let's take responsibility. Responsibility is twofold. It's both extreme ownership. It means that I am in control of my thoughts, feelings, beliefs, actions, habits. I'm in control of that. Extreme abandonment, though, is the other side of what we call the fence. It means that I abandon the things I have no control over. So we intentionally put a man in a position, we put a man in a position to both own his part and abandon someone else's part so that we can strengthen the responsibility muscle. Each of those things, responsibility, ethicality, mastery, adaptability, nobility, each of those things, DeAngelo, are a muscle. And you grow that muscle by having that thing under pressure all the time. So we create different exercises and challenges for that man to experience every single day so that he can grow in his capacity. Because when he breaks under pressure, the next question that we have him ask himself is, what area did you break? What area did you violate? Where are you
Mm.
not strong? And once he identifies that, then we do something called dirty work to help him fortify that area before he moves forward, right? Some guys have to move forward by addressing responsibility. Some have to move forward by addressing nobility. It depends, right? What we live in an AI age, and most men are not adapting to AI. Most men are afraid of AI because when we're inept at something, we don't like the feeling of it, right? So in adaptability, we may tell a guy, hey, go take a course on AI. So what is that doing? That's strengthening his adaptability muscle so that when another situation happens where he has to be adaptable, he has the skill set in order to do so. So that's the way that we use AQ.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I see a lot of that happen, especially being in human resources. People, in their, 40s and 50s,
Yes.
particularly having a struggle with changing because of the technology, and
Yes.
they'd rather change their environment. Like I've heard you say, they'll quick to change their environment, take another job somewhere else, but they're going to see the same thing happen there rather than change themselves.
Yeah.
So it
100%.
makes a lot of sense. Before we get off into the legacy segment of this interview, because I know we want to talk a little bit about legacy, leadership, in the ReManned world.
Yes.
You should just kind of like daily practice there. But what would you say the age group, if there is an age group for ReManned, who's your primary market for the program that you have? Because it sounds like for me, like this would be a great program for me. A lot of brothers that I know, especially who are trying to like, maybe they're empty nesters and now they're having to like they have a lot more time on their hand. They're trying to find their purpose,
Yes.
reestablish their next half of their life.
Yes.
Who is this for?
So ReManned is for guys that are at the low end. Our sweet spot is 25. We do allow men inside ReManned that are 21. We don't allow anyone in ReManned that is younger than 21 years old. And so from 25 to about 40 is our sweet spot, right? We have men inside of ReManned that are in their 50s and 60s. Everybody's responsible for doing the same work. But we are after men who are married, businessmen who are married with families that are trying to master all of it at the same time. Because that is the pain that we're seeing men in. It's a different level of pressure, right? To have to master all of it. Guys that are single don't have the same pressure. It's not the same trying to keep a wife happy and children. Like it's not the same. It's a different game, right? And so we specifically design our programs to help a man who is married with a family and a businessman at the same time. He's got to lead other people, leading them and then leading a home and then leading yourself. It's hard work. So we've developed a program that speaks specifically to that man.
Okay. Do you find that men that are in their 40s, 50s are harder to work with, or harder to internalize this learning you're providing versus someone who's in their 20s, like you said?
No, we found just the opposite.
Okay.
It's strange because guys that are in their 50s and 60s, like I'm 56 years. So guys that are my age, older than me, come into this world and they get a chance to breathe with a group of brothers who finally understand, right? On the backdrop of a world that doesn't. So they find it really refreshing to be with a group of individuals who genuinely get it, right? The pressure that they're under. Our wives don't get it. Our children don't get it. Society doesn't get it. So imagine how many men are checking out of here, DeAngelo. They get a chance to exhale. And they've spent so much of their lives trying to be somebody for everyone else that they find a world where they can finally just kind of say, okay, let me find out who I am. And at the beginning, we say, I know who I am. My guy, you ain't got to do that here. You can lay all that there. You ain't got to do that here, right? But we have seen significant levels of success for guys who are older in age, because I'm older in age, right? So we are modeled and shaped after a particular guy in mind. And so, yeah, we see change and transformation with him.
That's great because, I mean, we just talked about the fact that, someone who's lived life seasoned, for a while and lived a certain way and they're ready to like make some serious lifestyle changes. Sounds like a great opportunity to do that, to reframe themselves and how they see themselves in their second, act. For me is like one of my goals, because I went through similar things myself. So, and, before we go into leadership and legacy with ReManned, I want to end with asking you, because you broke down all the different, areas that you focus on, but a person does not have to fix all those things at one time, right? So at least that's what I'm thinking. The question I would ask, okay, if I'm struggling with finances, marriage, struggling with career, that's a lot, right, on the table. So what would you say to a person? Where do you start? Is there the one that is most easiest to conquer? I mean, if I'm living a disaster in all 5 areas.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you kind of gave an example of some things in your own life, but they didn't all happen at one time. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Health, that.
Yeah. So a couple of things, man. Again, let's push back on the idea that they all can't happen at once, because they can, right?
Okay.
Let's not push back on the idea, because you're right, that is hard. Very, very difficult to do, but it's possible to do. So this is how it works in our world. DeAngelo comes into our world. Usually when DeAngelo comes into our world, there's one area that's on fire, absolutely on fire, right? And we put that fire out first. But after we put that fire out and we begin to actually deal with that fire, here's what we find out. That fire has caused issues in other areas that you can't ignore, right? Think about the president of the United States. When he sits in that seat, he got to deal with all of it. He can't. There's nothing he can abandon, right? If there's, like, right now we're dealing with Iran, Israel, right? Like there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. He can't decide, I'm only going to deal with this. So as a man, particularly men of color, bro, and I'm interested in what you say about this. Not that I'm going to try and turn and interview you, but I'm interested in what you would say about this, bro. Like, as Black men, as men of color, we're behind. So we can't afford to do one thing and then another thing and then another thing and another thing. We have to find a way. That's what integration is all about. It's about, how do I deal with all of it at the same time? When they come to me, they're not thinking about, they're thinking their marriage is in trouble or their business is leaking profits. But after we deal with that area, they say, yeah, but this has caused this, right? And that has caused this. So they got to deal with all of it eventually.
I kind of see what you're saying with the connection. Everything's connected, because I know brothers dealing with the marriage issue, child support, lack of income through a job, all those things at the same time, then the demand of being a father at the same time. It's pretty taxing, but what you might find is the reason why all those things are there is because of something inward, internal,
Absolutely,
that they have
bro.
not addressed. Right.
Absolutely.
And then they can start dealing with those things. Right.
Absolutely. See, if I don't, let's go to the root of the question, right? Do you know how many men are dating women without a sense of who they are? Let me tell you one of the statistics that we just keep close to the vest. We don't even tell people, because it's horrible marketing if we tell people, right? When a man comes into ReManned's world and he's been in relationship with a woman and he heals, he now looks at that woman like, why in the heck am I with you?
Yes.
Because he made the decision from an unhealed place, right? So we have a lot of men that break up. So we can't work at that. We can't say, hey, come to ReManned and you're going to split up with your lady, right? But the reality is that many men, because they haven't done the identity work and they haven't done the purpose work, when they enter relationships, they haven't done that work. And when they get clarity around that, they find out, oh my God.
When I did my own thing, therapy, and I used to deal with, if you went to my website, it was about, anxiety.
Yeah.
And I've done great things in my life, professionally, entertainment, all type of things, made good money.
Yes.
Doesn't matter, right? When you're dealing with traumas, when you're living a certain way in your life, you create the types of people in your life that enable you, right?
Absolutely.
And once I decided to look at myself and do the work that you're describing, then it was like blinders was off, and I'm like, okay, I got to change this relationship with you. I got to change this relationship with work. I got to change the relationship with my family.
Yes.
And some of that all made all those relationships, actually most of it made all the relationships better.
Yes.
My marriage better, made my friendships better,
Yes.
made my relationships with family members,
Yes.
extended family, but all that. I used to make career the focal point of who I was.
Yes.
It's not, that's what I do. It's not
Yes.
who I am.
Yes.
So when you say that, it makes a lot of sense because, then you can start tackling those problems because you're tackling the problem with the same purpose and mindset,
100%.
right? Rather than you're like, oh, let me get a better job because that's going to fix my financial situation. But when you get a
100%.
better job, you're still throwing out money at the same.
Brothers who have not done the inner work, when they first come to us, we got guys. One of my clients, I laugh at him all the time. He's in our mobile program, and he just got married. His name is Levon Lewis. Levon Lewis, his wedding was just an essence, right? Phenomenal wedding. He hates SQ work. He hates it, right? He can do AQ work all day. Still said he owns a branding company, does great work. But when it comes to doing the SQ work, the meditation, the declarations, the visualizations, the identity, purpose work, like that stuff. So I can always tell when he meets with me, I say, oh, we haven't done any SQ work, huh? So he starts laughing like, man, I don't have time. I said, if you don't have time for that, just understand you'll live a directionless life. Like, I don't have a dog in the fight. It's okay if you don't want to do it. I'm just telling you that after a while, those gaps will be exposed and you will be in the exact place that you're in right now. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Look at Will Smith. Right?
Absolutely.
You can say he's reached greatness in his career.
Yes.
Right. At all levels.
Yes.
But then we saw what happened. Right.
Yes.
Now, where's that coming from? That's coming from some trauma in the past that's never been
Absolutely.
dealt with. And money just is a Band-Aid on
Magnifies
top
that.
of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That Band-Aid goes away. And here we get to see what has not been dealt with for 40, 50 years in your
Absolutely,
life.
bro.
In one
100%.
moment. For someone who has pretty much lost everything and is at this point in this stage where they're trying to look at what legacy looks like when you're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
What would you tell a person
who
feels like everything is just they're rock bottom, basically,
it's the
in all
greatest
aspects?
place to be. There's nothing like
Oh
it.
yeah? Why is that?
Because you rock bottom, place where everything is stripped, everything is gone, reveals a couple of things. One is purity of who you are. You don't have anything else to rely on. You're naked. You are vulnerable. You are pure, right? Like there's nowhere, can't go any lower, right? It's the place where transformation genuinely takes place. And for many men, you've heard it said about those that have experienced addictions and things of that nature, right? Rock bottom, and she's been clean for decades now, right? She said, until he hits rock bottom, she called me boo or buddy. Buddy, until he hits rock bottom, ain't nothing you can tell.
Yep.
Right?
There you go.
And so that's why it's the greatest place in the world. If I hit rock bottom, it matters the rock at the bottom. If the rock at the bottom is hard enough, that if I had when I was growing up, man, they had these little Super Bowls, right? And you would throw the Super Bowl against a wall and it would bounce all over the place. The height of the ball was dependent upon the amount of force it was thrown against the bottom. So when a man is thrown violently toward the bottom, his resiliency is down. So he gets a chance to cry out to his creator. He gets a chance to reevaluate everything. Everything's on the table now. Like he doesn't have anything left. So everything's on the table. If I don't want to be with you, I ain't got to be with you. I ain't got nothing to lose. If I don't want the job, I ain't got to keep the job. I ain't got nothing to lose.
Exactly.
Right? And so it's the most transformational time in a man's life when he hits rock bottom. It is the greatest place in the world.
Wow. I love that.
Yes, sir.
So what is the biggest lie that you think a man will tell himself in this moment?
The biggest lie that every man tells himself is that balance is possible.
Back to this balance again.
Yeah, balance is
We
possible.
back to this balance.
Yeah, balance is possible, right? So I can find a way. Somehow there's going to be a magic formula. Everybody's going to fall in line. Balance is a lie. It is a myth, and it is dangerous. It is a
And nobody
dangerous.
ever gets enough, right?
Nope.
You give too much over here. You work too much over here. At home, same
Yes.
thing. You're not around enough, right?
Yes. Yes.
So is it if I were to put this in really like layman terms, I'm married, I have a job, sometimes it's demanding. Is it really just about having honest questions, like honest responses, like with my wife? Hey, look, I don't have capacity to fix the thing today, but I'll fix it on Saturday, right? Rather than just doing it, knowing that you're beat down, exhausted, and then have all that showing in your body language while you're doing it. Being honest, babe, look, I just don't have capacity mentally today. Rough day. Can I do this on Saturday? I'll be okay with it.
And it's okay if she doesn't like it. See, the law of the fence says this. On my side of the fence, my thoughts, my feelings, my beliefs, my actions, my habits, my character, my destiny. That's all mine. I can control it, right?
Yep.
If I love my wife, and this is for every brother, if you love your wife, allow her the freedom of her thoughts, feelings, beliefs, actions, habits, character, and destiny. So if I make a decision that she feels some way about, I don't change my decision so that she feels better about it. I love her. I allow her the freedom of feeling whatever she feels without trying to control it. Yeah, babe, I'm not doing it right now. I love you, but I'm not doing it right now. I'm tired. And she, okay, and she's not speaking to you. She's upset. I'm not worried about it. The emotional continuum has this space, man. It is at the very top of it is love and freedom. At the very bottom of it is fear and depression, right? When I love someone, I give them the freedom to feel. So if I love my wife, I don't try to control her feelings. I don't say you shouldn't feel that way. I don't say any of that. I allow her the freedom of her feelings, and she allows me the freedom of mine. The fence says, keep yours on your side, keep mine on my side. I can't control yours. And what I had grown accustomed to is making decisions that would keep my wife from being upset with me.
Right. People
right.
pleasing.
And I called that love. That ain't love. It's enslavement.
Right. No, I hear you. It's people pleasing.
Yes.
And I think some people are really good at people pleasing, and it's damaging.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I definitely agree with you on that one. What does legacy look like for Donald Morton?
In fact, right after our time together, I had a meeting with my financial guy. I believe my kids are good, right? I've got a daughter who is vice president of a bank. My oldest son is an RN, or he's in RN school. He's an LPN right now and going into nursing with getting his RN. He told us the other day, he said, hey, Dad, I saved somebody's life. He said, somebody actually coded, and I was able to save their life, right? And then I've got my younger son is a world-renowned DJ. Legacy looks like for me now, setting up my life to make sure my grandchildren, I've got 4 of them. Oldest grandchild is named Anaya. And then I have Carsey. Carsey is my oldest son's daughter. I stay away from Carsey, man. Carsey make you fool. She got this smile. Hey, Papa. Bro, it make me want to admire the world. I don't talk to Carsey every day, right? Carsey can get all the money. King J, and then baby Hunter. So I've got 4 grandchildren. And I am trying to find ways to make sure that every one of them are well taken care of. And I want to do that through developing a business. And I've got IP, I've got trademarks, all of these things that can further make sure that it lives beyond Donald Morton, so that my grandchildren, and setting up family banks and all those kinds of things are so that whatever they want to do, that there's money to do it. And I am working now, ironically, not to make sure Donald Morton's good. I'm making sure that my grandchildren.
I hear that.
Yeah.
So if someone is interested, there's a man out here who watches this video and wants to learn more about ReManned and wants to actually get involved and learn more about the program. Where would they start? Where would you want them to go? Stuff like, but where would you say they would go to first to learn more about this?
So there's a couple ways to enter the ReManned world. ReManned Forge is the best way to enter the ReManned world. It is our membership and subscription model that gives a man access to a community of brothers. It gives that man a vault of trainings, hours and hours and hours of training in fatherhood, in business, in finance, personal finance, and health and wellness. It gives them a proven system that they can look through, which is the character arc. So calls experts that come in and teach us on these different areas. So the ReManned Forge is probably the best way for them to be a part of the world or to be initiated into the world. And it's a good news, man. We have 2 specials that are running right now where a man can enter our world. He can enter a subscription for 30 days for free. All you got to do is come in, kick the tires, learn the brothers, see the system. And for 30 days, you get a chance to play in the ReManned world without paying a dime, right? And then on the 31st day, he pays $149 a month, or he can cancel before the end and say, I'm good, right? So there's never a dime that is ever paid. Or he can pay $1,490 for lifetime access. So everything that the Forge will ever be, all of the future trainings, he never has to pay another dime in his life. That is what I recommend every brother that wants to grow and develop and be a better husband, better father, better business owner. Enter the ReManned Forge, where we have the elite coaches, a proven system, and a community of brothers that are going to hold them accountable and bring out the best in them.
Okay. And I want to give you one last question to close this with.
Sure.
For the man who's listening, who knows he needs to rebuild, but is scared, what would you tell that man today?
Fear is never an emotion that we should avoid. It is an emotion that we should embrace. Fear is an introduction to the courage necessary to be able to reach the levels that you have not been able to reach. Most men, when they feel afraid, make a U-turn at fear. What we tell men is to embrace it, to lean into it, feel all of it, and to not lie about the fact that you're afraid. Think about the time, DeAngelo, man, 2020, when we were dealing with COVID. We had men who said, I ain't afraid, I'm good. No, dude. If you're not afraid, we don't know all that's going on with this virus, people dying and dropping. Yeah, if you're not afraid, there's something wrong. The truth is, the goal is never not to be afraid. The goal is to confront that fear, to walk through that fear, and to do it anyway. So for every brother who says, you know what, I know I need this, but I'm afraid. Let me walk shoulder to shoulder with you. And let's face that fear together. Let's step into the world of ReManned and let us support you on your journey, because there's not a man inside ReManned that hasn't been faced with that level of fear for any given number of reasons, right? Not just the entering of the world of ReManned, but embrace it. Understand it's a part of it, right? And then move through it.
Well, I want to say to the listeners out there, if this episode landed with you today, take that one courage step that this brother has shared with you today. Donald, I want to thank you again for making this happen. This was an awesome interview. And I'm DeAngelo with Second Act with DeAngelo.com. We are out. Thank you so much.